and learns, one will develop. And when we develop, therefore, it's very important for academic leadership really create culture or culture that supports reflection, to have mechanisms in place or processes in place in the institutional culture, institutional in the timetable or the regular curriculum of the institution, where people come together at least once in a month to reflect on what and as an assessment of the entire organization, of different aspects of the organization. Because if an organization has to work, it's very important for people to see it objectively. It's very important for people to feel the need for change. It's very important for, unless one sees it and feels the need for change, one will not experiment, one will not initiate, one will not innovate for change. And unless one does the transfer. Therefore, I think being a reflective practitioner is key, or is the art for academic. With these words, thank you so much for being so patient. I'm sure with the technology, there's this aloofness also, where I'm not able to hear or see or read your faces to be able to understand how much of what I said could reach you. But nevertheless, wholehearted thanks to the organizers and all the participants. I would request we could take up questions.
Hello. Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful lecture. It was very informative and very enlightened. Ma'am, we have collected the 3 to 4 questions.
Okay.
A question in section 2, that is the academic leadership, and the question is particularly on CPT.
Okay.
Please, ma'am.
Can I know who's the where's the question coming from?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This question is from Subhalakshmi, ma'am.
Okay.
That is, a CPT should be done in common classroom teaching or dealing with child individually.
Okay.
The CPT mode.
Okay. Do you want me to address the question right off, or should I take 2-3 questions together and I think it would be nice to take 2-3 questions together and answer. Yeah, you can give me 1 or 2.
Sure, as you wish.
Should CPD be addressed directly in classroom is the question, right?
Yes. Another question I am just putting to you. Please see in your screen, ma'am.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, just giving.
Yeah. I think
ma'am, second question is from Hari Vaishnav.
Yeah.
And the message is, many times when we suggest the to the teacher after the observation, review, reflection on her class, they are reluctant to accept their findings and don't go for suggested change in teaching or pedagogy. How can we take them with us or journey? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
Ma'am, I am forwarding this message in chat box.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. I'm putting this message in chat box.
Next.
Next question is in session 3. That is Gulraz Khilani, and the message is just a minute. What are the methods can be used for evaluation of reflective journals?
Okay.
What are the methods can be used for evaluation of reflective journals, particularly for large number of students?
Mm. Who is this question coming from?
Ma'am, this question is coming from Gurudas Khilnani. They are our online Facebook live streaming visit कर रहे थे.
Okay. Any more hand raised?
Yes, ma'am. Just a minute. I'm forwarding one question to you.
Okay, by the time you put up the questions, I think I'll start addressing the questions that have come up. I take up the first one. Should CPD be addressed directly in the classrooms? Now, in fact, there is both, as for reflection, it is said, reflection in action and reflection on action. Now, this question is coming from Shubha Lakshmi. When we talk of reflection in action, it's more about while one is performing, and therefore it is also known as thinking on, so while one is doing. So, when you say CPD, professional development, so while you are doing your action, if there is scaffolding happening at that very stage, perhaps that would be CPD in action. But if there is a training session which is conducted separately from that, it would be CPD of the action. It should be I don't know if this is the question that you want to know, but yes, there is CPD in action also, which is also known as on-the-job training. So while you are on your job itself, so it's not about in-service trainings, but while you are working only, you are given through reflections, through forums, or through discussions or dialogues, you are on the site training. At times, it is known as on-site training, on-site support. So that's a part of ECPD in action, you can say, or directly in the classroom, which helps teacher improve one's own practice. Second question comes from Hari Vaishnav. This is about many times when we take observations or do observations, suggest changes, go for reflections. Teachers don't take up the suggested change. Haribhai, this is something which this is a common problem that we get to hear from a lot of heads of institutions. And the simple reason that I've understood is that, for example, if I am making any suggestion to you, it is I who have felt the need for change, and therefore I'm making a suggestion. But you have not yet felt the need for change. And therefore, you feel that I am putting or I'm enforcing my point of view on you. And therefore, you would not be wholeheartedly taking up the suggestions. And that's the limitation of a suggestion or an advice. People may take it, people may not take it. And therefore, the inherent flaw in existing mechanisms of classroom observation and feedback is we largely by
Ma'am, not audible.
Hello, am I audible?
Now audible.
Okay. Sorry. So I was saying that many times when we give suggestions to teachers or to anybody for that matter, we are giving suggestions from our point of view, from something that we have felt. So if I feel a need for change, I have to undergo change, but I cannot make the other person undergo change. If you want the other person to undergo change, you have to create conditions wherein the other person feels the need for change. It is something like going and giving a suggestion to a smoker. Smoking is not good for health, but that is something you have felt. The other person has not felt that it's not good for health, and therefore the other person does not discontinue smoking. And therefore, if you feel that you want your staff to undergo change, you want your staff to focus on self-development. Perhaps we have to change from the existing practices of giving positive and negative feedbacks to giving reflective feedbacks, which come more as questions than as suggestions or as advices, which will help people or engage people in the exercise of self-questioning. And when self-questioning happens, it is only then one will realize a need for change. Otherwise, it is only suggestions. And suggestions and advices have inherent limitations. People may take it, people may not take it. The third question that comes is methods which could be used for evaluating reflective journal. Now here, when Asad was saying he was talking about reflective journal for students, I just want to clarify, although I'll talk on more. Now, the entire purpose of writing a reflective journal is for self-assessment. It is not about others' assessment. It is not about management or somebody else or a senior supervisor coming up and seeing what people have written. Yeah, in the exercise of collective reflection, it can so happen that we are helping each other in writing better reflection or in improving our entire skills in reflection. That can be done. But reflections are not for assessment. Reflections could be for self-improvement. Reflections, unless they are collective reflections. So it's not about a person, if it's about an institution, yes, they should be open to assessment because every member of the institution has to go towards it. So if it's an assessment of an organization that we are all doing in our respective roles, yes, it has to be assessed. And when I say assessed, we'll have to do rightful questioning at every level and identify the inherent gaps in so that which makes the institution lag behind. So I think that is to be done. Asit sir, do we have more questions?
We have another two questions. This is in chat box also.
Yes,
I'm also reading these questions.
Reflection in action and reflection on action is important.
Yes.
Either reflection for action and reflection within is also important.
Yes, ma'am. Both the question are same. Monica Gajwani and Dr. Gopal Singh.
Okay. This question comes from Monica. Monica, reflection for action. When you say reflection for action, matlab, it's the action has not been committed. How do you reflect on it? I think this has become a little word play in that sense. Reflection in action, matlab, while you are performing the action, you are reflecting on what you are doing. when you say reflection on action, it means the action has already been done. It's the past, and you are reflecting on it. When you say reflection for action, it means the action is still to come and you are reflecting. So you cannot reflect in anticipation. So there will be no reflection for action. And reflection within is also important. Reflection is always within. I don't understand how reflection can be without. So perhaps more of a wordplay, I think it's but reflection is about how you think of what you do. So it's more about reflecting within. It could be personal reflections, it could be professional reflections. Yes, it's reflection within. Any other questions? Any other question?
There is a few. Yes, ma'am. There is another question. This question from Suman Nandi. That is please, ma'am. She has written that please share the interpretation of initial self-assessment.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Unless there are other questions, I'll do that sharing. Are there any other questions?
Is from Dr. Vivek Nath. Yes, ma'am. One another from Dr. Vivek Nath Tripathi, assessment of reflection. And Yasika Tong, that is an academic leaders for being reflective practitioners need to be emotionally and spiritually intelligent.
Sorry, come again on this question.
Academic leader. Yes, ma'am. On academic leaders for being reflective practitioner need to be emotionally and spiritually intelligent.
Oh,
that is a question
in
from
fact,
Yasika Tong.
Reflective, yeah. Yashika, in fact, reflective practice will help you become more emotionally and spiritually intelligent. So it is not other way. If you are spiritually intelligent, only then you can reflect. Maybe you cannot be spiritually intelligent without going into the path of reflection. So you become emotionally intelligent or more balanced only if you have learned or mastered the art of reflection. So it's not the other way. And yes, I let me share before the time is up. Let me share the interpretation. Most of the questions that are coming now are repetitive. So you can do sharing. Yes. So now I come to this. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So for the section 1. So in the section 1, if your score is between 0 to 6, you tend to reflect in action, reacting to what is happening around you. And this may involve quick reflective thinking as you are involved in an event or experience. You may take action immediately in response to the situation. And this is a valuable way to reflect on and learn from events as they occur. So if you have scored between 0 to 6 in the first section, this is for you. If you have scored between 7 to 12 in the first section, the second half, you tend to reflect on action, which is to say, once the action is done. Afterwards, a more thoughtful and deliberate process. You are likely to review events, think about the reasons for actions or behavior, and seek others' view. You perhaps examine theory and research to investigate practical issues, planning future action for problem solving. And this is moving from basic reflection towards a critical output to improve professional competence and engagement. So in either of the cases, so there's nothing good or bad, whatever you scored, okay. But it is about telling yourself where do you fall and therefore how do you need to work on your practices of reflection. So if we take the second section, second section was more about how do you do reflection. So if you've scored between 0 to 6, then you tend to follow the Kolb's learning cycle, the idea of learning by doing. You However, you'll become a better learner using more of the ways of learning, especially seeking a helicopter method, putting yourself outside the event and then observing the event. So that's known as a helicopter view. If you score between 7 to 12, you tend to take a wider reflective stance. So you are not looking at the micro lenses, you're looking at the macro lenses. And you examine your own and others' perspective, reflect on the rational argument, engage in critical reflection,